There are seasons in life when you don't need any more validation from the outside world. Just one quiet moment, long enough to realize where you are and which direction you're about to move toward. Lately, Libra has begun to feel the rhythm of their own life more clearly. No longer being pulled by other people's expectations. No longer rushing into decisions just to keep someone else comfortable. Everything starts to slow down. Thoughts become more settled, and the things that once caused hesitation begin to fall gently into the background. When the inner world shifts, the path ahead shifts as well. Achievement no longer feels like something you have to chase. Emotional connection no longer feels like something you search for in anxiety. A new journey is quietly taking shape, and it all begins the moment you allow yourself to step through that first door. There are times in life when you don't need a major milestone to know that something inside you is changing. You don't need a dramatic event to force yourself to look back. Sometimes it's just one morning when you wake up and feel that your inner world is different. A little lighter, a little clearer, and no longer gripping so tightly to the things that once drained your energy. Libra may be standing in that exact moment right now, a phase where nothing suddenly flips upside down, yet small steps are quietly shifting your position within your own life. You begin to observe the world more slowly, not because you've lost motivation, but because you want to understand what truly matters. You listen more. You think things through more carefully, and you no longer react immediately to everything happening around you. There may have been a time when you tried very hard to keep everything balanced, to keep relationships from cracking, to keep your work from drifting off course, to keep yourself in a place where you felt accepted. But then, at some point, you realize that real balance doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from the sense of peace you feel when you are alone with yourself. And from that moment on, something begins to open. Not a door that gives you clear answers right away, but a door that allows you to ask the right questions. What am I moving toward and why? What am I holding on to out of fear of loss rather than because it still belongs in my life? Am I living in tune with my own natural rhythm or someone else's expectations? Libra has always been sensitive to imbalance. When something shifts out of place, you feel it immediately. But instead of rushing to fix it, this phase seems to invite you to pause and observe, to pause and feel, and to pause long enough to understand that not every change needs to be controlled. Some movements are simply meant to be accepted. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to argue the way you once did. You no longer feel the urge to over-explain your decisions. You no longer chase standards that force you to constantly reshape yourself. In their place, a new kind of calm begins to form. A quiet confidence that doesn't need to be displayed. A sense of stability that comes from knowing where you stand, even if the road ahead isn't fully visible yet. This door isn't opening to pull you away from the past overnight. It opens just enough to let some light come in, enough for you to see corners of yourself you once avoided, enough to realize that some old fears no longer hold the power you thought they did, and enough to understand that you don't need to become a different version of yourself in order to be valued. For Libra, this is a phase of learning to trust your own choices, even when not everyone agrees, to trust your inner sense, even when there is no clear proof, to trust that slow steps still matter, as long as they reflect who you truly are in this moment of your life. A new journey doesn't always begin with excitement. Sometimes it begins with stillness, with evenings where you think more than you speak, with moments where you choose to sit with your emotions instead of trying to fill the space. And within those quiet pauses, Libra slowly understands that they are crossing an important threshold where life is no longer seen through the old lens. That door is still gently open. It isn't rushing you. It isn't demanding anything. It simply waits for the moment you feel ready to trust the path that is taking shape ahead of you. There comes a point in life when the idea of success starts to look very different. Not because of failure, and not exactly because you've achieved something extraordinary, but because the old definition no longer feels convincing. Libra may be standing at that exact point right now. A moment when the standards that once pushed you forward no longer have the strength to guide your next choices. In the past, success may have been tied to recognition, to being seen, to being acknowledged. You became used to weighing other people's emotions, adjusting your behavior to keep everything harmonious. But over time, you begin to realize that constantly reshaping yourself comes with a cost. Not always exhaustion, but moments when you quietly wonder whether you're truly moving in the right direction, or simply maintaining a version of yourself that feels safe to others. This phase brings Libra a subtle shift. You're no longer focused on proving your worth through speed or immediate results. Instead, your attention turns inward. You start noticing how you respond to pressure, how you carry expectations, and how you value yourself when no one is there to validate you. Growth doesn't arrive through one big decision. It shows up through small choices, all repeated over time. When you choose to speak less and reflect more. When you stop agreeing too quickly just to preserve peace. When you allow yourself to admit that some things once fit, but no longer do. Those moments aren't dramatic, but quietly, they begin to build a new foundation for how you move through life. Libra starts to understand that inner stability doesn't mean every emotion feels comfortable. It means your emotions no longer pull you too far off center. You may still hesitate. You may still feel unsure at times, but you're no longer losing yourself in invisible comparisons. You know you need time. You know you need space. And most importantly, you know you don't need to chase anyone to feel worthy. As your inner world steadies, your relationship with achievement changes as well. You stop carrying everything like a weight you must complete. Work becomes a place to express your ability, not a place to seek approval. Goals become direction, not pressure. And each step, whether slow or fast, carries a sense of choice. You may not yet have a clear name for success, but you begin to feel the difference in how you live each day. Less tension, less self-blame, and less doubt about who you are. You understand that holding on to what truly matters is just as important as knowing when to let go. Not letting go as surrender, but letting go because you've grown enough to choose what fits your life now. Inner maturity doesn't close you off. It simply makes you more selective. You don't need to share every thought. You don't need to explain every decision. And you don't need to move faster than your own capacity. You allow yourself to move forward at your own pace, with respect for your personal limits. For Libra, this may be a stage where success is no longer measured by what others can see, but by how it feels when you look at yourself. A sense that you're living in alignment with your core values, that your choices reflect the person you're becoming, not the person you once tried to present. And from that foundation, lasting achievements are given space to form, without urgency, without display, simply as the natural result of an inner world strong enough to support every step ahead. At some point in life, people begin to look at money with less emotion, not expecting it to solve everything, but no longer dismissing the role it plays in creating a sense of security. For Libra, this phase feels like a quiet recalibration, where the way you manage your resources starts to reflect the way you are choosing to live. In the past, you may have noticed that your finances moved up and down, not only because of circumstances, but because emotions often took the lead. Decisions made to please, spending driven by a sense of obligation, or moments when you said yes simply because you didn't want to disappoint someone. Over time, you begin to understand that true harmony doesn't come from constant accommodation. It comes from knowing where to draw clear boundaries, even when it comes to money. Libra slowly develops a more grounded perspective, not rigid but clear enough to tell the difference between what is necessary and what only offers temporary comfort. You start paying attention to the small details, recurring expenses, long-term financial commitments, and even goals you once set because you thought you should have them, not because they truly fit who you are now. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It shows up in choices that seem ordinary, when you pause before agreeing to a plan, when you allow yourself to say no to offers that would cost you stability, when you take time to reassess long-term direction, instead of reacting to immediate demands. Money no longer feels like an invisible pressure. It becomes a tool that helps you understand your personal priorities. You start asking where your time and energy are going, whether your goals support sustainable growth or simply keep you busy, and most importantly, whether the pace you're moving at matches your actual capacity. Libra has always been sensitive to their surroundings. When things feel unsettled, you tend to absorb it and adjust accordingly. But in this phase, you seem to stand a little steadier, not by shutting the world out, but by holding a clearer internal axis. You know the direction you're facing, even if you can't yet name the destination. Personal goals begin to reorganize themselves in a more realistic way. Not long lists filled with ambition, but directions that feel manageable and sustainable over time. You no longer push yourself to accomplish everything at once. Instead, you allow progress to unfold step by step, with patience and respect for your limits. What's noticeable is that as finances and personal goals fall into place, a sense of calm starts to appear in everyday life. Not because you have everything, but because you understand what you're working with. You stop getting pulled into invisible comparisons. You stop worrying so much about who is moving faster or slower than you. Your focus returns to your own path, with intention and responsibility. Wisdom in this phase doesn't mean avoiding all risk. It means knowing which risks are worth taking. You don't close yourself off to opportunity, but you also don't reach for everything out of fear of missing out. You choose carefully. You evaluate. And you understand that every choice carries its own consequences. Not good or bad, just aligned or not. For Libra, this may be the moment when you feel your growth most clearly in the way you build your life. Money no longer dominates your thoughts. Goals no longer feel like something you must achieve to prove your worth. Things return to their proper place, clear enough for you to keep moving forward. Stable enough that small disruptions no longer force you to turn back. And within that state, you move a little slower, but with far more certainty. When the practical parts of life begin to settle into place, something else quietly shifts inside Libra. Not because you are actively searching for it, but because you are no longer forcing yourself to fill empty spaces the way you once did. In that state, the way you look at love begins to change. In the past, emotions may have come with a lot of thinking. You weighed everything carefully. What to do to keep the peace, how much to give, how much to compromise so nothing would fall apart. But over time, you come to realize that a real connection does not require constant effort just to survive. It doesn't keep you on constant alert. And it doesn't ask you to endlessly adjust yourself to meet someone else's expectations. In this phase, Libra naturally begins to slow down in matters of the heart. Not out of fear, but out of understanding the value of presence. You no longer feel the need to fill time with conversations that carry little meaning. You no longer feel rushed to label your emotions. Everything is allowed to unfold in its own rhythm, without pressure, without a timeline. As you become steadier within yourself, something subtle begins to happen. You stop seeking validation through love. You no longer need someone to prove that you are worthy of care. And in that state of not needing, connection becomes easier. Not because you force yourself to open up, but because you are no longer closing yourself off out of old wounds. Love now feels like an unplanned meeting, something that wasn't scheduled. It may show up as quiet understanding in an ordinary conversation. It may feel like safety around someone who doesn't ask you to explain yourself, or simply the comfort of being fully yourself, without defense, without performance. Libra begins to see that lasting connection is not built on intense emotion that burns for a long time, but on consistency in how two people show up for one another. It doesn't always require grand words. Sometimes it's just listening at the right moment. Respect that doesn't need reminders. A sense that silence doesn't create distance. You no longer view love as something to achieve. No longer feel the pressure to keep pace with anyone, to have a relationship by a certain age, or to prove that you are happy. You allow yourself to live fully in the present moment and let connections arrive when they are truly aligned. This doesn't mean you become indifferent. In fact, you grow more refined in how you feel. You recognize sincerity more easily. You can sense what is fleeting and what is real. You don't judge. You don't rush away. You observe, you listen, and you let time do its work. For Libra, love at this stage is no longer a place to escape inner emptiness. It becomes a natural addition to a life that already feels emotionally whole. You don't need someone to rescue you. You simply need someone who can walk beside you, with both of you standing firmly on your own feet. That connection may not yet have a clear shape. It may exist only as a gentle feeling, but you are no longer anxious about holding it or defining it too soon. You understand that what truly matters often needs time to grow, with patience and respect. And then, in its own way, love appears, without disruption, without pulling you away from yourself. It simply arrives, present, at the moment you are ready to share your life with another person, without sacrificing your inner peace. As the connections in the present begin to feel lighter, Libra starts to look back with a different kind of gaze. Not to blame, not to regret, but to understand. To understand why certain things once felt essential, and yet no longer fit who you are now. To understand why some relationships once occupied so much space in your life, but now remain only as memories softened by time. Letting go in this phase does not look like a clean break. It isn't dramatic. It isn't forceful. And it doesn't require a clear declaration. It happens quietly when you realize you no longer want to return to old patterns. You no longer want to repeat conversations that feel familiar but empty. You no longer want to carry thoughts that make you question your own worth. Libra often holds on to the past longer than necessary. Not because you don't know how to let go, but because you always see the good in things. You remember the warmth. You remember the closeness. And sometimes, you hold on because you fear that releasing the past means losing a part of yourself. But eventually, you come to understand that memories don't disappear just because you move forward. They simply shift position to a place where they no longer control your present choices. This phase brings Libra a new sense of calm when looking back. You stop asking who was right and who was wrong. You stop trying to explain why things ended the way they did. Instead, there is acceptance. An understanding that every chapter served its purpose, and every ending creates space for something else to take shape. Letting go can also mean slowly stepping away from thoughts that once protected you, old fears that kept you from getting hurt, limiting beliefs that taught you to be cautious. As you mature, you realize those layers of protection are no longer needed in the same way. You don't destroy them, you simply place them down gently, like setting aside a coat that no longer fits. Libra learns not to cling to what has already completed its role, not out of ingratitude, but out of respect for the journey itself. You understand that holding on to too much of what no longer fits crowds the present. And in a crowded space, there is little room for anything new to arrive fully. You may notice that saying no feels easier now. The lingering guilt fades faster. The need to over-explain quietly disappears. You choose clarity over compromise. You choose honesty with yourself over maintaining harmony in other people's eyes. These choices do not make you cold. They bring you closer to your personal values. As old cycles begin to close, Libra doesn't rush to fill the empty space. You allow yourself to remain undefined for a while. You don't need to know what comes next. You only need to know that you've created enough room for what truly deserves to enter, even if it hasn't appeared yet. Letting go in this phase is an act of trust. Then trust that you don't have to carry everything to keep moving forward. Trust that what is meant for you will find its way once you are no longer held back by what is already past. And trust that the lightness you feel is not loss, but a sign that you are living closer to who you are now. For Libra, this is the moment you continue walking forward without constantly looking back. Not because you've forgotten, but because you understand enough to know you don't need to return there again. After moving through many stages of reflection, reordering, and letting go, Libra may begin to notice a very subtle shift in the way you meet life. Not a sense of excitement waiting for something to happen, but a quiet readiness. Ready not to grasp at things at any cost, but to stop turning away from what is good when it appears. In the past, you may have grown used to giving more than you received, to being the listener, the one who yielded, the one who stayed behind the scenes so everything could keep running smoothly. Over time, that became part of who you are, and yet, somewhere deeper inside, you may have wondered whether you were unintentionally refusing what you deserved, simply because you weren't used to receiving. This phase doesn't ask you to change who you are. It simply invites you to look again at your relationship with receiving. You begin to understand that receiving is not weakness. It does not erase the value of what you have worked for, and it does not make you dependent. Sometimes, receiving is nothing more than allowing the flow of life to move through you naturally. Libra learns not to brush off recognition out of discomfort, not to deny care out of fear of owing something, not to shrink when opportunity knocks. You don't need to believe that everything will unfold in a specific way. You only need to trust that you have the right to be fully present in moments of goodness, just as you were present during more difficult times. Allowing yourself to receive also means learning not to rush. You stop pressuring life for immediate answers. You stop setting rigid timelines for achievement or connection. You understand that some things need time to ripen, and others appear only when control is released. In this state, Libra no longer looks outward for guarantees. You don't need promises. You don't need certainty. You only need to feel that you are living in rhythm with the present moment, that whatever is arriving, large or small, all is the result of a process you have quietly lived through. Receiving here is not limited to material things or relationships. It also lives in the ability to enjoy ordinary moments, a quiet morning, a conversation that doesn't require many words, a sense of satisfaction when you look back at the road you've traveled. These moments don't need to be labeled as success or love. They only need to be felt. Libra begins to understand that you don't need to become a perfect version of yourself to be worthy of good things. You only need to be yourself, with enough experience, enough mistakes, and enough maturity to stop refusing what life offers. When you stop standing on the outside and allow yourself to fully participate, everything becomes much gentler. This journey doesn't end with a clear conclusion. It opens into a quiet space, where you can continue moving forward in your own way. No rush, no comparison, no need to prove anything. Just continuing to live, to learn, and to allow what fits to arrive when the time is right. If there is one thing worth holding on to from this entire story, it may be this reminder. Each person has their own rhythm. What you feel today does not have to match tomorrow, and what you choose to believe can change over time. What matters is allowing yourself to listen, to choose carefully, and to keep moving forward with respect for who you are. And if you're listening to this right now, let this be nothing more than a small pause for reflection, not a prediction, not a promise about the future, just a story being shared, so you can feel what resonates, keep what fits, and continue your own journey in the gentlest way possible.